Hello, everyone, and welcome to a little Best Picture update. It's the last time we did this when Life of Chuck was still in contention. I'm pretty sure
I
it's been
believe so.
a long time, so I'm sorry, everyone. Life of Chuck, in case you haven't heard, is releasing next year. Honestly, that film would have done. That's a very uplifting film, so who knows how it would have done this year, given the state of the world. We'll figure out next year. But this is our Best Picture update in November, pre-Wikiator, well, kind of during Wikiator.
Glicked. It
I
is
like
Glicked. Why do you get every time?
I like Wikiator. I like it. Interesting state of the race, honestly. Our perceived frontrunner, Anora, is kind of losing some buzz, in my opinion. We have to see how
As
the.
is Emilia Perez, which was my perceived
Oh,
frontrunner, I think,
yeah.
last time we did this.
It's definitely losing some buzz, definitely being polarizing, which I think was expected, but I don't think that's going to be a winner contender. And Brutalist we'll have to see. Still to release. Conclave is doing well. So we're in an interesting area right now. Any thoughts before we get into the rankings on how the race stands right now?
I think the middle of the pack,
Hmm.
I'm pretty confident, pretty sure.
Yeah.
What's at the top and what's at the bottom? Whoo! We are flying blind, folks. So buckle up.
We are. We are. I think it's down to like a top 15, but what that
Yeah.
ends up being is definitely up in the air. There's a lot. This season has been unpredictable thus far. It's a very untraditional season, which makes it more fun, in my opinion. But we've got a long way to go, and things have changed a lot within just a few weeks. So I imagine in the months remaining, things can definitely change even more. So,
A movie we have at like in the middle could rise to number one. There are movies at the top that could end up not getting nominated. That's how crazy this year is. And I think all eyes are on these first awards voters to
mhm.
really start to set the race. Right now, we have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of feelings. We'll talk about like Anora and Emilia Perez because I'm not also sure that just because maybe they have a little lull, it doesn't mean they can't come back. I think it's a really interesting season.
Yeah, no precursors. I think maybe once we get more precursors, the race will settle out more as most years. But right now, we are, as you said, flying pretty blind. And if we're blind, we might as well make some blind decisions, as
Woo! Take
most
off the
people,
glasses.
for one, some people I think will have Conclave. I think those are the popular two right now, maybe Brutalist. In the season where you're able to make interesting that most people aren't. And right now, that is what I am choosing. Putting Nickel Boys at number one. Because I personally, I don't think it's going to be as alienating as people think. Lots of people still haven't seen it. It has alienated some people who have, but I think it inspires obviously a lot of passion from the people who have seen it. Most people who like it don't just like it, they love it, and they think it's like a masterpiece and one of the best films of the year. And it's not nearly as like emotionally distancing. I see some people worried like because it's in first person point of view where the camera is the perspective that it might be like you might feel disconnected from the characters. But it's very much not the case. You're very almost even more so because you're in the character's perspective, very emotionally invested in what happens. Very emotional, like I said. I think a lot of these voters vote based off emotion as well as message. I think this is a great mix of those two because I think especially if you could compare it to Moonlight that year, I don't know, we can't really figure out how much Moonlight's win was connected to the election or how much it was connected to. I remember that Oscars So White thing was just a few years earlier. It's hard to figure out what exactly made that Moonlight win happen, but I could see it comparable for this. I think it's definitely important. It's emotional. It's about like survival and persistence through very difficult times and very difficult things. So I don't know. I can see if Amazon MGM they're pushing for it really hard, and I think they could will continue to. It's very unknown right now because unlike some of these other films, it has yet to release. So I'm putting it out there. I think it can win.
Yeah, okay. I will grant you this. I put Nickel Boys in at number 10.
Yeah, better have it. I don't think there's a world where it misses. I would be
mm,
devastated.
there's just a lot of movies like it that have, which is what I struggle with. Because if
Like
if
this
it's
though.
not the type of movie, and I grant you, but I mean, there have been other wonderful movies, other transcendent films that tap into an emotional experience that have not been portrayed yet cinematically, that are unique visions of cinema, and they come up short because there's something flashier with more industry love, more industry people that just gets the attention. I think, you look at something like this compared to like A Complete Unknown, very different movies, but one definitely has a lot more, industry credibility
Yeah.
that will get, because this is the thing, and this is what I always fight against, and I want people to go see these movies, but you get two invites, or two screeners. What's going
Hmm.
to be the higher priority? The one that has Timothy Chalamet and James
Yeah.
Mangold and Edward Norton, or the one with Anjanou Ellis Taylor from Ramel Ross? nothing against those filmmakers. If anything, you should go seek them out because they're newer voices that need your support. I also think that, I was championing Origin last year and nobody seemed to care. And so like
Mhm.
that's what I'm worried about. Like when you have like people like Ava DuVernay with Ingenue Ellis and they're not able to get attention, why is Nickel Boys different? Maybe the
I think
studio
it's a
might
much
be
better film, and I
eh,
think it's by a bigger studio.
and
But
granted, you've seen it, you might be able to pass judgment in that way. In the end, that is subjective, and so I worry
it
that your subjectivity with the movie,
it
I,
definitely is influenced.
yeah, don't worry, it's going to influence my picks too. So
I'm sure. Yeah.
you can table that. But that's why I struggle with because I just don't see what is pushing people towards that movie. It still has to open, which I think it at least will
Mhm.
benefit from is whatever
It's a
fanfare it
late
gets with its release. Um, and also, what's Amazon? This is Amazon's priority, right? It doesn't
Amazon
really all.
MGM is, yeah, they're really pushing
Yeah,
for it. Their
yeah.
priority.
So goodbye, challengers. We're pushing you off the
I still got
lifeboat.
a chance. We'll get, but yeah, they can get
Um,
to it.
so yeah, I will put it in at number 10 because I do think that the it could be celebrating this new visionary filmmaker. I do think it sounds really enthralling and interesting. It could start a conversation in a way that a lot of Best Picture movies do.
It'll be long
Just
number one, and I think that gets you into Best Picture, in my opinion.
so we can hope. I know you're definitely hoping, and I definitely want to check out the movie.
Yeah.
And I will put it at 10 just because I think a lot of the other contenders, like A Real Pain or September 5, I want to call it September 5th, but apparently that's not what the title is.
That-
A lot of these other contenders, they're on the bubble in the same way, but I trust your judgment, so I will put Nickel Boys in at number 10. So you've won
Thank
me.
you.
You've
Thank you.
got me that point. It's okay. So different order, but that's my 2 through 5. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. And actually, I just have Anora and Conclave switch, which I think you should have, and then we would have the same order.
Yeah, I can see Conclave because it's definitely, as we've mentioned before, it's very Edward Berger's style in general is very middlebrow. Like it's not highbrow, it's not like super artsy, but it appeals to a lot of people. I do think Conclave will be like a general will rank pretty high on most people's ballots. I think it's a hard film to like hate. I think most people will enjoy watching it, but I don't know if it inspires like I don't see anyone who's like loving it. This is like the best film of the year. I think most people are like, it's a good film. I don't
Yeah,
know how a film can
I
get that kind of passion to win Best Picture.
I think it's going to remind us of what happened with Belfast, which was like a movie that like nobody talked about front of mind, but it's like, well,
Mhm.
did you see Conclave? It's like, oh yeah, I loved it, but like it's
Yeah.
never the movie that people lead with, which I do think is what hurts it to win, is you
Mhm.
need the sort of Tom O'Neill of Gold Derby had this phrase of like the evangelical vote. It's like, oh yeah, The
Okay.
Revenant's going to win, but have you seen Spotlight? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, whatever movie's going to win, but I loved Green Book. It works in many different regards, but like that sort of, but have you seen this? Which I don't think Conclave has, at least yet. I do think it benefits from being a box office hit for
Yeah.
the scale of its movie and made $26 million domestically,
Connects to the
which,
election too.
yeah, that's true. And I also think that in a world where, Emilia Perez maybe falters, this is a narrative about certain identities that people could get behind as far as what the movie ends up being about. That's all I'll
Hmm.
say. And so I think it's in there. It's fighting, but it's got to get that rush of enthusiasm that I don't know if it has in it.
Hmm. And
We'll
I don't
see.
think it can win director, and it could maybe win screenplay, but we've talked about before, it's not a writer director, and they don't.
Mhm.
That's iffy. And the last time they did that was Call Me by Your Name. So I
I
don't know.
honestly, I could see a world where it misses director, and that doesn't really change how we view
I
the
don't think.
movie.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think this will get director, but it's definitely on the edge for sure.
Yeah.
So and then
Um.
Anora is interesting to talk about right now
Yeah.
in my. Because it's been the perceived frontrunner pretty much since Cannes, I think. And it's not great to be a perceived frontrunner, in my opinion, especially for that long. So it is losing some steam as more people are seeing it, more like general audience people are seeing it. I'm seeing a lot more people saying it's overhyped because it has had a train since like the summer, and people just not quite connecting with it the same way festival audience have. So I don't know. I can obviously still see it. Like it's got Neon behind it. They're doing a very similar campaign with it that they did for Parasite. So I could still see it happening in the end. I'm not feeling.
My thing with Anora was always like, if people are comparing it to Parasite, Parasite was this, cross national, commentary on class, and
Yeah.
Anora is kind of like a subversive fairy tale.
Hmm.
It's like what happens after happily ever after for Cinderella if she married a
Yeah.
Russian oligarch instead of
Yeah.
Prince Charming, and like also at its core it's a comedy.
Mhm.
It's a comedy with a lot of poignant, um, deep, dark moments, but it's a comedy. And that middle sequence that's like 20 minutes long with them tying her up and like trying to
Yeah,
keep her,
like
and then
Three Stooges.
Ivan
Yeah.
running, it's I just have yet to see whether this movie is actually going to be able to maintain its momentum and connect with Academy voters in the way that it needs. Florida Project gets one nomination for Willem Dafoe, and I think that's because he's Willem Dafoe, not because he's in the Florida Project. So
Hmm.
the fact that they're going to do such a 180 on Sean Baker, and this isn't like a filmmaker that's been around for like this isn't Christopher Nolan. It's like, okay, finally we're going to catch up with you, or even Spielberg. Like Sean Baker, it's been less than 10 years since he really announced himself with Tangerine. So like I just it's that's the thing about Anora. It's like I loved it. It's one of my top 5 favorite movies of the year. I think it's extraordinary. I think Mikey Madison is terrific. I love Mark Adelstein. I want him to be nominated for supporting actor. I think it's
Hmm.
fantastic. I just don't. Again, it's seeing who are going to be the people that can't stop talking about Anora enough to get it to win. That's what I'm struggling to see. That at least Conclave. I do think with Conclave, like the Academy base that definitely plays to their demographic.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know if Anora is playing to their demographic in the same way.
Hmm. And Conclave still has a little, I think, international appeal in a sort of way. It's got an international cast and international director, even
Mhm.
though in English, I think it still has some international appeal as well. But I do think Anora's still got a better shot at winning just because I think it brings more passion with it. I think
Yeah.
there are a lot will consider it the best film of the year, and I don't know a lot of people who
Well,
will say
I mean, I think any of these top 5, I think people will say are the best of the year. I could see it, all these movies
maybe.
topping lists.
Yeah, yeah.
And Anora did win the Palme d'Or. So like
Hmm. The first
international,
American film to do it in like what, 20 years? It's been a long time.
yes. So international voters do. It seems so far are going to respond to Anora as well. That Conclave, that's not necessarily a what is it, a stripe in its cap, whatever that phrase is.
No, yeah, no. Honora definitely has more international
It's
appeal
not
than
the old.
I
It's
think.
not a singular stripe in their cap. I should say. It's definitely
No,
it's going for them. Um, you know.
yeah.
So all right,
And
and
then
then the Brutalist. We kind of have to just wait and see. We have to wait and see
yeah,
how this performs.
they're doing lots of screenings and lots of stuff for people in the industry currently, but it is kind of wait and see to see how it does. When it releases, this isn't the type of movie to make money though, in my opinion. I mean, it's 3 hours long. I mean, not nearly 4 hours long. It's got an intermission. I also do wonder, I think lots of Academy members will watch it at home on their portal. Most Academy members will watch a lot of these at home on the
Not
portal.
the way to see it.
Do you think the intermission will still be in there if it's not in a theater?
Yeah,
Yeah.
come on.
Okay.
Listen, I grew up on the
Fast forward.
story continues on disc 2 with Lord of the Rings. They
Yeah,
better
that's fair.
put the
Yeah.
intermission. Um, you know, uh, my thing with the Brutalist is just I don't think it'll benefit from watching it at home. Um, and I wonder how is it going to play any differently than like The Irishman or Killers of the Flower Moon? Now there could be an argument to be made that those movies were hurt because they had to live up to the legacy of Scorsese, and Brady Corbett coming out and just being like, "Hello, here's the Brutalist." That might help him because he's a younger filmmaker. But I also could see many people like kind of shrugging off, like, "This kid wants me to watch 3.5 hours of his movie." I don't think so. You
It
know,
doesn't have a huge stars in it either. Like it's got Brody, it's got Felicity
yeah.
Jones.
And it's a tough sit. And what do I always tell you every season? If you win Best Picture, you've got to be a movie that you can rewatch. No movie succeeds because you've watched it. 12 Years a Slave, maybe. That's the last time you could argue. You watched it once and that was enough.
Yeah.
But like any other movie that wins Best Picture, even movies like Spotlight, I watch Spotlight like once a year. Are people really going to want to watch? I think it's going to be a tough ask to ask people to watch The Brutalist once, let alone twice. And I think that's indicative of something. You have to be so passionate that you can't stop talking about it. You're willing to rewatch it with friends who have not watched it because you have the screener. It's like, let's put on The Brutalist. I mean, if you
Mhm.
want to put on The Brutalist, you got to put on your calendar like 2 months ahead of time.
Yeah, you will. I do still want, I haven't seen the film, so you can speak to it more, but like that poster of like from what I've heard about it, like the commentary on the American dream, the fact that it's, I think, a foreign person to America and kind of being corrupted by this like selfish American Guy Pearce character, the
Mhm.
upside Statue of Liberty post, I think it can make an excellent moment. But I also have heard
Okay.
that like maybe if it ended at the intermission, it could win Best Picture, but that the second half, it doesn't end on the strongest note.
It doesn't end. It ends on a very. I think. Listen, it is a very exhausting movie, and I think Brady Corbett would say purposefully so. And I grant him that. I think he's trying to drain you to show you the emotional impact of what these characters are going through, and I think he achieves that. But I wonder. It's I have to, I just have to wait and see. I have to see how the general populace in just react to a movie that I think is not designed for you to like it. If you're doing that, you have to be really good at your craft. And that's,
Hmm.
we love movies like Tar, which we think are really
Yeah,
good, but then don't end up translating to any Oscar wins. So
it's
that's where
too
it's like,
cold, is what
yeah,
people
could be
say.
too cold. And I also, and right now, because you've talked about like how people will respond in, it'll be a couple weeks after the inauguration, we'll be in the first month of a Trump administration, which will have effects across the globe. You
Hmm.
know, where will people be? A lot of times, Nomadland, Moonlight, these were, in the last Argo, in post-election wins. You could maybe sense that they were more connected to the political atmosphere of their times. But I could also see a world where, because of where we are, because of what it represents, they kind of just want to be like, listen, I don't. The last thing we
Feel
need
good.
now is more serious. We're in the feel good mode. We just had
Yeah,
Oppenheimer last year. Let's have a feel good. And then
yeah.
maybe something like Anora, even something like Conclave. If we're
Things.
comparing politically minded movies, Conclave is a little bit more palatable. That's the thing
Hmm.
that the Brutalist also has to overcome. Is Conclave also has a prescient political message, um, or maybe something we haven't talked about on our list yet.
Maybe, maybe not. But last on this first slide, Emilia Perez, recently released on Netflix, as I'm sure all of you are aware. Lots of discourse surrounding it. I've kind of, I mean, I think most people who had seen the film at the festival could see this coming. It's a huge swing of the film, and it's definitely not going to connect with everyone. And there are definitely moments being clipped out and talked about. Um, so I think it still engenders a lot of passion. I just don't think it's too polarizing to be Best Picture winner, but I think it'll still do decent nomination wise, and it's got some wins that look pretty likely that I think
Yeah,
it's still got the
but
upper
no
tier.
director. And I think a movie like this that
No,
could not, if the, like this is on the bubble with Jacques Audiard, I think he still could potentially, because
I think he
I'm
could.
not
Yeah,
Denis. I know you're really rooting for Denis, and we'll get to Dune, but I'm not
I
so
think he's
sure.
campaign so
Well, he was campaigning the first time too. It didn't
not as
make a
much though.
difference. So, I do think that like a movie like this not getting its director in, I think it would be tough to win Best Picture. That's my
Yeah,
feeling.
I
It's
don't
like
think it'll win. Yeah,
because this movie is such a vision that if you're not going to honor the vision, then it kind of says that what you feel about the movie. I also think that there was a world where I thought all three actors could get in. There's a growing world where maybe only one of them gets in for a nomination. I think
so
we have to consider the possibility.
yeah,
Um,
I don't
you
think
know,
Gomez is Gascon is. I think it depends on the film because I could see a
yeah,
world another musical performance, which we'll get to in a second, could maybe
yeah.
take her.
I mean, right now, like for actress, because listen, Carla Sofia Gasson is amazing, but so was Aquafina in The Farewell, and she missed out. And so there are so many times when like a movie is, and granted, I know The Farewell was not nominated for Best Picture. Amelia
Yeah,
Perez will be, and so that has the benefit. But there are always times when a movie that has a lead performance. I mean, Margot Robbie last year, very different movies, but still,
yeah.
because right now I have Cynthia Erivo, Nicole Kidman, Mikey Madison, Angelina Jolie, Demi Moore. That's my five. Now you could take
Okay.
Demi Moore out if the substance isn't a big thing and put Carla Sofia Gasson, and maybe that is your five. That actually would make a
Hmm.
lot of sense. I'm just going to go with the Demi Moore passion because I think more people are talking about her than Carla Sofia Gasson.
Right
Um,
now, yes, yeah.
yeah, but so yeah, I think Amelia Perez. Um, I don't know what to make of it because I did not sense the level of backlash among like the film world that this movie is
That is a
get.
bubble, though, to be fair. I think Academy people will probably like it more than like the film Twitter bubble.
That's that's 100%. I agree with you. But it needs, again, because it's such a subversive film. I feel like it's playing a risk, and the fact that it doesn't at least have like the film, but because like Everything Everywhere had that bubble of support that helped elevate it, and its subversions, which this will not have.
But yeah, I think Netflix is number one. If you look at it in the past years, their number one usually at least performs as it should or overperforms nomination wise, but win wise doesn't quite get there. Like Maestro was divisive. Still pretty much got all the nominations it was expected to. It didn't
Yeah,
really win Power of
no,
the Dog.
it didn't win makeup.
No, it didn't even win makeup. But yeah, Power
I
of the Dog, their
I think
number one.
it's drifting more Maestro than Power of the Dog right now.
For
Sound.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So that is that. Our next bunch of nominees. Number six, I've got Dune. I feel like Dune is pretty much just in there. It'll get a bunch of tech bumps. I think it'll still get director. It'll win a few tech categories, probably what like I have a winning three right now, I think, with editing, sound,
Yep.
visual effects. I feel like that's pretty safe. And yeah, I just feel like it's pretty in there. It's obviously at this point with all the other outcomes, Warner Brothers' big push. So yeah, I think it's in there. I don't think it's like a major threat to win anything above the line, but it'll get some tech noms and wins. And
I think this is the steadiest nominee. I think that we
it,
all know how this is going
it's
to
been there
perform.
all. Yeah.
The only conversation is again Denis, which I just don't know because I think not enough people are talking about the movie. And it would be really difficult. I still think it's difficult for me to imagine that, the second Dune has a worse release date, and I do think it has less conversation about it than the first Dune had.
Mm,
That could pick up maybe with the show, maybe more people are talking about it. But I'm not
does
so
seem
sure
like a
about
good
that.
show. Yeah.
And so I really don't think that when you have more exciting people that you could nominate, like when you have the stories that go along with the good work that like Corley Farge do and or Corley Farge does and John M. Chu, that like, okay, did he really like, if you didn't like it for the first one, what did he improve? Like, because I also don't subscribe to the
I think
belief
it's
that
bigger.
I don't, it's bigger, but it's not that much better. And I love the first one. This isn't me thinking it's not a good movie.
They're on
I think
par. Yeah.
they're on par as great movies. So I just don't. What is again? The only argument I think you could make for Denis gets in is just that this is a weaker field. But I don't know if that's true. I think there's a
I
lot of
think
contenders in director that I think are going to excite more people to nominate. I think Corley Farge is a lot more of an
she's
exciting
definitely
choice.
more exciting.
Ramel Ross is a lot more exciting of a choice than Denis
He should
Villeneuve.
win. But yeah, I think what happened with the, I mean, this is speculation, but the first time I think with Villeneuve was I think a lot of people were kind of like, people like to use their votes for really pushing like what they want to see get in there. So I think sometimes people take for granted nominations that I think they think like, oh, Denise getting in there. I'll use like this spot for someone else. I think maybe enough people did that. It didn't have enough passion
Mhm.
for him to still get in there. I think people might be like, oh, well, if he missed for the first one, he should have been nominated for that, even though I didn't put my vote towards him because I thought he was in there. I think there's a narrative there. He's campaigning, but he's definitely still on the bubble. He's the best shot, I think a blockbuster film director nom is what I'd say. But
Hmm.
we'll
Hmm.
get to that. We'll talk about first. I think
I will say if I concede Nickel Boys is in that top tier, we have the same
Mhm.
top eight.
Okay.
Like
That's
I think, and then if it comes down to the 9 and 10, again, if I'm conceding Nickel Boys is higher, like let's just say I move Nickel Boys to 8, we have the same
mhm.
top 8. So I don't think we're that far afield. Again, it's just our
No, it's
order.
just the
And even
yeah.
then, it's not really our order. It's just that your 8 and my 8 are switched.
They flip, yeah.
Your
Pretty
8
much,
and my 1. Whoo!
yeah.
Just switch them up.
Reversed. Yeah. So Sing Sing, I think, in an interesting spot. I do still think enough people will see it and enough people will like it for it to get in there. We have to see how A24 is supposedly doing a re-release of it in January. I think they'll screen it to enough Academy members. Hopefully, we have to see. But I think Sing Sing is the kind of film that performs. I mean, during the start of the year, during the extremely early Oscar predictions, it was the perceived frontrunner. I think this is the kind of film that performs better as an underdog than a frontrunner. I think seeing this film as an underdog helps it a lot more than seeing it as the best picture frontrunner. So I think it'll still get it, but I don't think it'll
Yeah,
contend
this feels like past lives. It's A24's like
second
junior
tier.
contender that like it's gonna get in. I doubt that something could shockingly take it out, but it's just yeah. I think enough people connected with it that it will be able to get in with no hassle.
There's a word I don't think, but the difference is I think A24 is prioritizing the Brutalist, so I don't know if they'll put Sing Sing in a place where it can't have a Coda type of comeback, which was Apple's number
Yeah.
one. So
No,
we'll
yeah,
see.
no, I don't think it'll win, but I think like Paul Raci was in there, so he
Mhm.
just wasn't when competitive against
Winning.
Daniel Kaluuya. Um,
Yeah. Let's get to it. Wicked. I obviously you we're flipped on this. You have it winning, which I personally, I mean, we just did a Wicked
so
on this. I think it's a little crazy. I think
I
it'll
know
probably
it's crazy.
a little. I think it could still honestly miss, but I have it in there. I think it's pretty safe at this point, looking at the other contenders. But please, how do you have this one?
Okay, so this is the thing. It is a more of a reflection that I can't I love this way of looking at it. And
Mhm.
this I'm gonna compliment you before I
Thank you.
prove you wrong.
Before, yeah, okay,
Because we talked about Cody Smith McPhee for supporting actor that year, and you talked
yeah,
about how you couldn't imagine a world where
didn't
he's
make
on that
sense.
stage. It just didn't make sense. You just couldn't see the image. And
Mhm.
that's what I think a lot like Brutalist, I could see
You
that.
can
Even Amelia,
imagine the Wicked people on stage for Best
well,
Picture.
hang on. This is my thing.
Okay.
Brutalist I could. Emilia Perez I could. Anora, a little shaky. Conclave, a little shaky. Um, And so if you're looking at that grouping, because I'm again Nickel Boys, I have to see. I have to see the movie. I have to see how it performs. But right now, I'm not including Nickel Boys because Nickel Boys for sure. It's hard for me to see them going up
I
on that
can
stage.
totally see that. Yeah,
I know you can.
I can see it. Yeah,
But so
obviously.
my thing is that like if the negative attributes of the campaigns come true for the movies we've talked about, what does Wicked have going for it? Wicked has a box office hit. People have seen the movie, and that is tend to Everything Everywhere was a big box office hit. I think one of A24's is it A24's highest grossing movie? I forgot.
I think that's Civil War now.
Oh, now it's Civil War. Okay, but at the time it was up there.
I
It was
think so. Yeah,
one or two. I think Hereditary might have been
I think
ahead
it.
of it domestically. Um, but yeah, but that was obviously a big independent hit coming out of the pandemic. Oppenheimer almost made $1 billion. So box office does help, and this will definitely have a box office hit behind it. It'll have the craft people. We've talked about it. At least 2 Oscars already in the can: costume design, production design.
Mhm.
I've talked about the different guilds that I think could get behind this. I do think Producers Guild could get behind this. I think the actors could get behind this, and those are very strong groups.
Mhm.
At that point, if it has that sort of cross branch support, it already has a couple Oscar wins. We've talked about this. I don't know which one of them, but I'm fairly confident that we could see a world where the Wicked actress is one of them wins. And so that's maybe 2 to 3 wins. At that point, I do think you have to consider it because it's going to have such broad support. It's going to be a movie that has so much passion. That's clear from the word of mouth, from the fandom that I think is just getting energized by the release of the movie. I mean, we're talking about a movie that could have an A+ cinema score. Movies like Green Book had A+
Mhm.
cinema scores, and that took them all the way to Best Picture.
It
So
did.
and I also think it's the most different out of all these movies, like Conclave, Anora, The Brutalist, Emilia Perez. Dune is kind of in the is different, but I also think Dune is not being looked at as a winner. Um,
Mm-mm.
like right now, Dune at being number 6, I think speaks more to just the fact that it's more likely to get nominated. But I think once we start doing like what is most likely going to win, it might be 10. You know.
Yeah,
um, so then I just think right now I'm just going to go with my heart, which is that, and because we're at that place, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to make this case, which is that I think
yeah.
it has enough support that it could top all these things and it could be surprising. But look at the last couple of years. I think Wicked has the chance to benefit from that sort of enthusiastic push from its fan base more than any other movie this year. And that's why right now I definitely think it is in top contention.
And we had a longer discussion about this. Check out our Wicked review. So I don't want any
One
points, but
video that way
one
or
video.
that way. Swipe.
It's a live stream, so it might be in a different app. But yeah, um, I just think in that video I made this comparison. I compare it to Barbie, where I think it'll be a huge office hit. It'll acting in I think the branches that will like it the most, like you said, are the actors and the craft people. I think it appeals to them the most. I just don't think that this is the kind of film that enough people in the Academy will take seriously for it to be a true win contender. To win Best Picture, you've got to either usually win or director or adapt or director or screenplay. And I don't think this one really has a good shot at getting nominated for either adapted screenplay. It's a musical.
That's fair. I
Usually,
will grant you that. That
I don't
is a
think it'll get.
fair thing.
I can't remember the last movie that won Best Picture
Question.
without getting nominated for either of those. I think that's a pretty big stretch. Um, I think it can end up being a top tier contender. I can see honestly a world where it wins SAG Ensemble, but even then, I don't think this is the kind of film that it's connected to an IP. It's a franchise film. It's going to make a ton of money. I think that's the kind of film where they're kind of like the blockbuster film. Money is the win, all that stuff, and it'll get some tech wins and below the line wins, but it won't be like a Best Picture contender on that
And
level.
and again, I think right now where I'm at is that, Conclave probably makes the most sense, but I don't know. I just don't feel the same. And maybe that's it. Maybe we're just in for another like Conclave. It's like, oh, okay. All right. It's everybody's like 6th favorite Best Picture nominee. It's nobody's favorite, but it's the one we all agree upon. And maybe that's just the season we have. But listen, right now, as you picked your favorite movie of the year, I'm gonna go ahead with. I mean, I saw the TV Glow isn't here, but given that that's not
No.
here, I'm gonna go with Wicked. But I think that the screenplay directing thing is good. I do think there's a world it gets nominated. What I want to go to is when's the last time a movie didn't win either and won Best Picture? I'm gonna do that now while you talk about
Like
year 9 and 10.
even Coda didn't end up
One
winning.
screenplay.
I think it's been a while, is what I would say. Not in the
Yeah.
preferential system. Sure. But yeah, A Real Pain I have at number 9. These last two, as you can see, both Searchlight. uh, they've got a decent shot at getting 2 and 1. It seems like at the start of the year they might not get any. I'm not huge on either of them, honestly. A Real Pain, I can just see the nomination package. It's inspiring um, passion from people who do see it. I just do think it is a very small film, and the package is also very small. It's really just supporting actor, screenplay, and then picture. And movies have gone in with less. I think every year there's like at least one Best Picture film that, like with Past Lives last year, that has or Woman Talking the year before, that has a pretty minimal nomination package that still ends up getting in there. So I can totally see that for this. Complete Unknown is, title says it's a complete unknown right now. We're going to, I believe later next week, or no, I think at the time of recording today. So this might come out by the time this comes out. The unknown reactions will already be out. So who knows? We could look dumb. I don't know what Anthony just discovered.
Okay,
Is it a
so I was
musical? Is it
so I was
Chicago?
going
It's Chicago.
Chicago. Now I'm doing because I do think that it could get nominated for Best Director and or Best Adapted Screenplay. I
Okay.
think that's the world. So my thing was, when was the last time a movie won Best Picture without winning either Best Director or a Best Screenplay? And the last time that happened was Chicago. I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to admit defeat. No,
Yeah.
because the
No,
one movie you can compare it to the most is the
that's-
one that it checks out.
Yeah, I still think
Yes.
Chicago is more of the type of musical that they lean towards in terms of, I think this is more fantastical, but I'll give you that. It's definitely possible, I think, Chicago package, but I think we're in a, I
It's
think
Lord of the Rings meets Chicago. Come on, that's the
I
pitch.
do think
Universal, hire me. I will do your FYC campaign.
they should. They should. I do think they're more international now, though. I think the membership has changed, and I don't. We'll have to see how much this appeals to the more international vote, because they tend to be a little more pretentious. A Complete Unknown's initial social media reactions will be out by the time this video comes out, so that's why it's at number 10. It's iffy. It's a Complete Unknown for us right now. I just do. I mean, it's Timothy Chalamet playing a villain in a gold film. I don't think the nomination all for this is huge either. Similar to A Real Pain, I think it would probably be actor, maybe makeup, sound,
Supporting
maybe
actor.
maybe supporting actor. We'll have to see how people react to how big Edward Norton's role is in it. I know people have been saying Monica Barbaro has a decent role in it, and supporting actress is very open. So I don't think it'll have a huge haul, but I still think it's the kind of film. It's not smart to underestimate it.
I think the substance is very strong, and I think the substance is going to win Best Makeup and Hairstyling. I think Demi
Yeah.
Moore gets in. I think Corley Farge, talk about your international people. I think she's what benefits from that sector of the branch in getting in there. Okay, so if you have 3 nominations and 2 of them are top tier, then I think it gets in. So if that's number 9, then I would argue your number 10 is between A Real Pain and A Complete Unknown. And I agree with everything you said about A Complete Unknown. What I will counter with is that, I know you've been talking about Hitman and that maybe being the 5th spot in Best Actor because he's going to win the Golden Globe. What if Jesse Eisenberg wins the Golden Globe and it's this return to form for Jesse Eisenberg, and then Kieran Culkin is a frontrunner for supporting, Jesse Eisenberg gets into actor, it gets a screenplay nomination. At that point, then I think that maybe then trumps A Complete Unknown. So first off, let me ask you, why isn't the substance on your list?
I'm still iffy on it. I don't know. I just feel like there's lots of online hype for it. I just have to. I'm wait and see with that film. I know that the film Twitter bubble is strong, but I feel like sometimes it's an echo chamber, and people online like, oh, everyone loves the substance because everyone on my film Twitter bubble likes it. I think you expand that out to the real world. My parents tried watching the substance. They did not enjoy it. I think you expand it out to maybe more of the older academy. It might not have a ton of appeal. I think it's still, at the end of the day, it's still like a body horror film.
Yeah.
I do think
and it's aggressive. Like Poor Things was not aggressive. Like Poor Things was, definitely visceral, but this is a tough movie.
And there's a heart to those films that the substance does not have. The substance is brutal.
I'll grant you that. It's brutal. It's more brutal than The Brutalist. Would you argue that Substance is 11 on your list? For the love of Christ, Jack, let it go. It's not happening.
No, I will not. I think Challengers has a lot of passion. I think Challengers appeals to a lot of people. I think the critics will carry both Challengers and Substance, but I can see score, editing, and screenplay. I think that's enough for Best Picture. But I don't know. That's me being Substance is number 11. I'm just putting Challengers there because if it ends up happening, I want to have it pretty high.
I
But
think
'cause
you're
it ends
crazy
up
to think that
happening.
it's getting editing. I do not think it'll work this. And don't give me
It,
Tick Tick Boom because that was number 11, and I know you have this as a number 11,
was
but it
number
doesn't.
11.
It doesn't support it. Tick Tick Boom was also in a pandemic year. It has an asterisk, and also
Yeah,
it was flashy editing because it was a
this is
musical that.
flashy.
Yeah, but it's different flashy. Tick Tick Boom was a more serious awards contender than Challengers is on a good
King
day.
Richard got editing. That's a tennis movie.
But that's a Best Picture nominee. Challengers is not a Best Picture nominee.
No,
I
I know.
don't. I love this movie. It's in my top 5 of the year. It's not happening.
It I shouldn't be number 11. I will agree with that. I should change that. Substance is number 11 in my opinion, but I think it's still very
The
possible.
issue is that the Substance and Challengers have the same sort of base of fans. They're younger. They are
I think Challengers has
subversive.
more broad appeal. And it also made more.
Mm, I don't know, because I really do think, and this says something about our culture, maybe it doesn't say about cultures abroad, but I think
Mhm.
sexual stuff is a harder sell than violence. And the Substance is more like,
But I think under sexual stuff, nudity is included, and the Substance has a ton of nudity. And Challengers
yes.
has no. Challengers doesn't have any sex.
As your famous tweet was very clear, sex scenes
Yeah,
don't need nudity.
yeah, because Challengers does not have sex or nudity in it.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
all
know. Again, I would love it to happen, and this isn't, and I will root for it to happen. But I see challenges on these lists, and I'm like, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not gonna
I'm
happen.
trying to make, yeah. I think you could say the same thing about Substance. So I think it really, obviously, we're in the precursor stage.
Yeah,
So
Substance has a better release date. It has, and
it's got
people are.
movie.
Yeah, but Amazon MGM is already distracted with their other movie, so at least
Yeah, but
movie
they've
is
got
the
a lot
number
more
one
money
contender.
than movie does. It's Amazon.
Yeah, I grant you. Well, maybe
And
not after
they,
Red One.
and they
After Red
and
One,
paying
they
it.
might not have any money left.
Yeah, I think
Um,
Red One's like losing a penny. I think they're
yeah,
fine.
I
Um,
I just think that in the end, all of the categories that you pitched me for challengers, none of them are above the line except screenplay. But
no,
I
but you
don't
don't.
think screenplay's happening
I think a screenplay can happen. What do you have instead?
for number 11.
No, for screenplay.
Oh, well,
Because
let me
you've
pull it
got
up.
Anora, you've got Brutalist, you've got Real Pain. You could do Substance, but then I think what are you between Hard Truths and Challengers for that last spot?
Hang on.
You've also
One
got
memento.
September 5.
Go through. So Gladiator isn't happening. I don't think
Gladiator, no.
Gladiator's. Yeah.
Gladiator, I think is Wakanda Forever this year. I have succumbed to that. I think it will get the supporting acting nomination. It'll get a slew of tech nominations, but it's a blockbuster movie. We haven't seen it yet, but from all the reactions, I think you can pretty much tell that there's not much going on there emotionally or like deep wise. It'll be a fun watch with some great action scenes, but I don't think people will take it seriously enough, and I don't think people will love it enough for Best Picture. But they'll like the text. It'll get Denzel. It'll get costume. It'll get production design. It'll get sound. It'll get visual effects, and that's probably it.
All
So
right. So you ready? These are the four that I think are in for original screenplay.
for yeah,
Anora, The Brutalist, A Real Pain, The Substance. Those are in. I feel.
yeah. I don't know about the
Okay.
substance, but the top three, yeah.
I think
Screenplay,
that
there's barely any
these-
dialogue. The writer's branch will go for a hard truths.
they might,
Substance.
or this could be. I know you don't want to touch this movie with a 10-foot pole, but like
It's not September
if
5.
if there's a world where that is the one place it gets a nomination,
That's its
'cause
best shot. Yeah.
so that could get in. Hard Truths could get in. I could also
I
see the
think so.
international branch doing what they did for Worst Person in the World, and Seed of the Sacred Fig gets in.
Maybe. Yeah.
I just don't see challengers getting a screenplay nomination. Somebody's going to have to explain again when this season is over why Blitz was just never taken seriously. If it continues
Yeah.
to go down this trajectory, I don't understand it.
I think
don't
most
get
people
it.
just think it's mediocre.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of mediocre movies that get nominated for Best Picture. Why
Yeah,
is
but,
this
like,
the one that just
It's
didn't
got
materialize?
those movies had like at least a little buzz going on. This has been released in theaters. No one's talking about it. It's releasing on Apple.
Is it the
for
Apple release? I don't know because I
What-
mean it has craft. It's gonna get sound nomination.
It'll get
at least.
sound.
It should
Yeah.
win sound probably for me at least. I mean it's up there with Dune. They're both really well sound design movies, but
Mhm.
like I don't know, like it's Saoirse Ronan. Like it's so weird, and this
Mhm.
movie is just such an afterthought for so. I think that's part of why this season feels so weird. It feels so weird that I can make the best case for Wicked, And yet movies like Blitz are completely like, what Academy are we dealing with here, people?
Yeah,
Steve
yeah.
McQueen made a war movie with Saoirse Ronan and it's in the 14th position.
It's still possible. I don't know. I don't see anyone really loving it, and I don't think enough. I don't think you gotta have some passion for it to get in there, and I just don't see
I
any.
grant you, I'm not arguing with it. I just don't
Yeah,
understand
no,
it.
yeah, me too, me as well. And that honestly, I think it's a top 14 because I don't think The Room Next Door. It'll have international appeal. I think it could get score. It could get screenplay. I don't think Swinton can sneak in at this point. If she was in supporting, she could definitely get in there. I mean, if we're having Zoe Saldana in supporting, we can throw Tilda Swinton in there for sure. But they didn't choose to do that, which is probably the morally right choice. But
Screw morals. This is award season.
Zoe Saldana Oscar guys. But yeah, I don't think that's I can get a few noms, but I don't think that's a picture contender. Is there anything I'm leaving off at this point outside of
No,
that top
I think I mean, unless something rises, you know, if
like September?
Mufasa.
See the Sacred Fig, Mufasa, God. See the Sacred Fig, I could see maybe rising potentially. It
I mean,
depends.
again, I'm not going to count out September 5 completely because it hasn't opened yet, but I also think that I don't believe in the hype around that movie yet. That and
Not
Nickel
really.
Boys, I got to see how they perform, and I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
You've gotten me on
But
Nickel Boys. You should at least
good,
be happy about that. I
good.
mean,
And I
Nosferatu is maybe the other one because
sure,
it has text that could
yeah,
go along with it. But I don't know. I feel like Nosferatu and The Substance are similar
it's still
movies,
an
and in
Eggers
that
film.
case, yeah. Um, Listen, I'm just happy that for once Wicked has not been left off of your honorable mention list and you actually
Yeah,
put it in. We've come a
yeah. It
long
was
way since
like the
April.
top 30. The last time we did this, it wasn't
You
even
put
like
Twisters above Wicked when we
that.
started this season.
Like March or May or whatever, which is we hadn't seen any of the films by then.
You
Was
did that despite me. We had seen Dune and we had seen Challengers when we first did this.
yeah, but I had those higher up. But
You
yeah,
did.
Wicked, I did not believe in, but look at it now. It is all the way at number 8.
You like Wonka more than Wicked?
I do. Truthfully, that is my truth. I like Wonka more than Wicked, for sure. But I think I'm in the minority, so that's that.
We'll
But
find out, you know.
we'll
Or maybe it'll
find
be
out.
like Emilia Perez and the movie's about to like, whoo.
Yeah, I think Wicked has more broad appeal for sure than Emilia Perez.
Oh,
So
really?
just a little, just a little
Just a
more.
little. Just a little.
A little, just about $1 billion more. Um, so yeah, at the end of the day, those are our best picture predictions in November. This is really the last shot before precursors. You guys can make some fun little picks before you get called crazy. Well, I mean, you're still called. Everyone's called crazy at this point, but that's the
Yeah.
fun part.
But this
So
is the last time Jack is going to have Nickel Boys at number 1. So we're going to enjoy this episode.
if you look at our best picture prediction video, I'm pretty sure it's been number 1 the entire time. Like I've had Anora or from like
Oh, God.
to October, and then I was like, whatever, Anora's losing steam. I'm gonna get on Nickel Boys. But if you just looked at our videos, it's been Nickel Boys the whole time because we haven't done a picture video since August.
Yeah.
So yeah, Nickel Boys all the way. But that probably won't happen. Comment down below what you think won't happen. All your predictions, Wicked, all that stuff.
And do you call it Glicked or Wikiator?
Yes, we should do a poll on that. Wicked or Wikiator or Glicked? Which one do you prefer?
Oh, God.
And then whichever
All
one
right.
wins, we will.
I'm melting. We got to end. We're good.
We can end now. So thank you all for watching.
Wise viewers can tell what we're wearing, and therefore they know we've been recording for 2 hours
For a little
tonight.
For a little bit. Yeah, we're in our Wikiator gear. So yeah, those are our predictions. Comment yours down below on the state of the race and all that stuff. We'll do some acting predictions and Golden Globes and all that stuff soon. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Also Gladiator, we have to review that. So thank you all, and we'll see you in the next one.